We'll go live in a few, Mr. G. We live, Mr. G.
Greetings from the motherland, from our jewel by the Carib Sea. G. Michael Reed with you as we are every Saturday at this same time. So be sure to tune in. We have a special show today with a special guest. I must say I'm honored to be in the presence of a gentleman who I've admired for years. And I think many of my generation remember Norman Fairweather. The new generation, I think, needs an education about the input that Norman has given and the contributions to our cause as such. Let me introduce, without further ado, Norman. Norman Fairweather. Norman, a pleasure. Good afternoon.
Pleasure is all mine.
Yes,
Always
man.
good to connect.
Norman, you got a long history, and you know that there are people who I was reading something on Facebook the other day that said, "Boy, have you ever stopped and said, damn, I've been through a lot of stuff." I'm sure you could stop at any minute and say, "Boy, I've been through some stuff," because apparently you have a storied history, man. Give us an overview of Norman. Who is Norman Fairweather?
Born in Belize, blessed by some parents that taught me about unconditional love. I've had misfortune turn into good fortune. I was in Belize. I was a St. Michael's College student, but moved from St. Michael's because I wanted the curriculum in science. And as you know, the St. Michael's, Wesley College, they were training you to be civil servants. I
Yeah, right.
wanted science, so I went to technical. Started technical in 61. In October 61, Hurricane Hattie hit, and I was airlifted, actually airlifted by a Belizean named Mr. Pinks, who flew for the RAF and who knew my brother, who also flew for RAF. And he took me and my sister Allison and my cousin Stephen Fairweather to Jamaica. And so I ended up finishing high school in Jamaica.
Now, funny because you mentioned about the educational system, and
Mhm.
that one big topic. I think we could spend a whole show to discuss that. We don't got enough
Definitely,
time, but we could touch on
definitely.
it briefly.
Mhm.
What do you think that we're on the right track as far as education, or do you think that there's much room for improvement here?
There's much room for improvement. There are sometimes people don't really want to do the self-examination that you need to do. The example I'll give you is when I went back to Belize and was hired by the Royal Bank of Canada. At
Mhm.
that point, everybody is telling me only clear-skinned people get hired by the bank. The reality that I found, that may be true, but the truth also lies in the fact that HJC and St. John's were teaching commercial subjects. So the girls coming out at SCA knew typing and shorthand, which was needed in banking. Uh, the people who grew up in the Protestant schools were really trained to be civil servants. There's a number of things. The big business at the bank was re-export. So if you had Spanish as a second language, that was a plus for you. So yes, there was some prejudice, but more importantly, it was the short-sightedness of the other high school, other denominations for not going to commerce, for not looking at development of Belize and just training people to be clerks.
Funny you say that because I've myself have thought about that, and it seems as if we're producing um, robots, if you will, workers, as opposed to critical thinking
Oh
thinkers.
Lord, that's the
You think
word.
you think maybe that's where we've gone wrong, and maybe we should be working on that more.
Yes, we should be working on that more. We need critical thinkers. We need to not develop robots, as you call them. It's
Nine to fivers, yeah.
it's yeah, you know, it's a change in curriculum, it's a change in teaching. I think right now the schools are still battling with who manages the school, who have the say. You know, I know that the union has come out strong about who can hire and fire in the
Well,
school system. You know, if the churches can hire and fire, then they face a problem.
one more point on this before we go on, because there's something that I wonder: do the educators themselves understand what ought to be taught to children to develop them as whole human beings, as opposed to just somebody locked off in a 9 to 5 corner, no? Uh,
I think they know how. I just think that you need to talk to these people and bring them together to really think through what they're doing. There's a lot of smart people. There's a lot of smart teachers that I've met and people who love teaching. The teachers have an added job in dealing with some of the social problems that the students bring into the school that teachers are not prepared to deal with. And that's a whole other issue. But yes, teachers know how to teach. Some of them are well trained.
so they
But
spend. Go ahead.
but there need to people who wants a seat at the table has to go there not wanting to be yes men or yes women, have to be willing to participate in a healthy way, to be critical thinkers and to think through how the next 10, 15, or even plan for the next 25 years. What do we want to see this place to be like?
Well, you touched upon a very important topic too, because the teachers have the added responsibility, it seems, to train children in things that they should be trained at home.
Yeah.
That do you think maybe the home they're sleeping at the wheels and not really living up to their part of the deal? Where they're supposed to have these children ready for education, aren't they?
I, don't want to judge any parent or anyone, but poverty creates some specific problems. You know, when a parent is pimping their child,
Oh boy.
that's a whole hell of a situation that you turn loose. Some time ago, my cousin, then for Fairweather, who was doing No Matter What, a
Yes.
series called No Matter What. One episode showed a mother absolutely pimping the daughter, checking the daughter how much money she get when she come back in the house. And I did most of Denver's sale in the US. And I could tell you the criticism about even having that episode. People feel like, no, you're not supposed to put that out there. An unwillingness to deal with
To
a
look at
very
it,
serious problem.
which is real. It
It's a real
happens.
problem.
And the sad part, Norman, is the prevalence of it.
Yeah,
They're not like one and two cases. That in some neighborhoods, some communities, that the norm. That what people almost expect to happen.
yeah, yeah.
So it's sad. Yeah.
It's real, man. I talk to some teachers as you know, I participate in finance scholarship for kids in Belize, and I talk to the students, I talk to parents, I've visited home of children.
So you
I
see it
see what
firsthand.
I see firsthand. I grew up in Belize. I knew there were poor people. I mean, some of my friends were very poor people from Newmarket, but I did not see the level of poverty that I see now when I am in Belize and visit those homes. I don't see that,
But
and
even the mindset, even the mindset of poverty, people that think themselves poor, because make no mistake, coming up in our time, most of us were poor. But I
mhm,
don't think that we 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 wallowed in that poverty, if you will. We never celebrated as such, even. or even pay much mind to it. We realized it was there, but I think maybe because it was more prevalent. I think the gap now that has widened between the haves and the have-nots
Yeah.
also is a big part of the problem. No.
I think that difference was just looking at my circle of friends as a child growing up. There was not a poverty of spirit. We had spirit.
Well, true, correct.
We had an energy that was there and a
Yes,
willingness to live in community that isn't there now. It's one of exploitation and oppression
it's
that we
interesting.
deal with.
Interesting, because I remember growing up as a small boy and going across the Chetamal. We used to see the street were lined with beggars. There were kids were begging, and then you'd come back to Belize, but we weren't. We were hustlers. We weren't beggars.
Yeah,
But I find now that lately seems we have almost adopted that scenario because that we find more beggars around the streets of Belize City now than ever before.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
don't know if that's because we've gotten poorer. But anyway, you moved from Belize and went to Jamaica. Now there are distinct cultural differences. There are similarities, but did you find it hard to adjust to their culture, or did you find it easy to mesh in, if you will?
Well, the Belize I grew up in, we did not have the class differences that I found in Jamaica. In Jamaica, I was privileged to live. I boarded with the director of prisons, who was also a director of prisons in Belize
Mm.
and was friends of our families. So when I went there, I stayed with them, and the setting was very different. It was two tennis courts, a swimming pool in the back. Prisoners come over every day to take care of the yard, come over to take care of the housework. So it's as a privileged situation. But because they were Catholic and I wasn't, I was able to spend a lot of time with the prisoners and talk to them, find out how they end up in jail, what they'd like to do, so forth. And what I realized was that they felt the divide, the class division. It was not so much color was not a major issue. The color was
Class,
green.
yeah,
The
yeah,
color
yeah,
was really green,
yeah,
but there
yeah,
was
yeah,
a steep class division. And I know, there are people who would tell me about the company I keep, be careful
yeah,
like
yeah,
this.
yeah,
Whereas in Belize, my mother encouraged me to bring my friends to the house.
yeah.
Any one of your friends is welcome here. And it took me years later to realize that's how she was monitoring me to see what I was doing and who I'm with and could control that if needs be. But in my house, everybody was welcome.
What was the experience? Was that like at school though? Because you also
At school
interacted.
was I used to make fun of them, telling them, "Oh, we're not like you with this class thing where y'all play." What I admired in Jamaica was their sense of history. And the Jamaicans will honor and embrace a Jamaica who is coming from any part of the world. They have some Jamaican history, they will embrace that. Whereas I found that Belizeans weren't so. Even when I went back to Belize from graduating from school, there are people who call me Jew boy.
Yeah,
So like
yeah,
I born there, I knew people, but somehow my little stay there turned me into something else. But so that was the main thing. The Jamaican could tell you about Bogle, told you about Granny, could tell you about their history. Whereas in Belize, we pretended that we did not have a slave history.
well,
So I found that as a big difference.
let's talk about that because I know Emery King got in some trouble for suggesting that maybe slavery in Belize was a bit different than slavery in the U.S. But to be honest, wasn't there some difference between the
The,
two?
the, the, the slavery in Belize, and you could look at it now, in Belize, we did not have plantation slavery.
Right.
In all the rest of the Caribbean, they grew sugarcane and they had plantations. Belize, we just cut lumber.
Right.
We
Right.
were just
And
hustling
chicle, of
chicle,
course.
lumber. We were in the forest and and we weren't planting back anything.
Yeah, yeah.
You
But
know,
we carried the tools. I think that was the difference,
yeah,
and
we carried
I
tools.
had to kind of like give a little respect for that because yeah, a man with a sharp tool,
Uh,
you know.
yeah, but there were several slave rebellions.
Right,
There were
right.
several in Belize, and
But I looked at and a funny thing because England, we know that almost the womb of slavery, they started the whole thing.
mhm.
But it seemed to me like they weren't as cruel in their slavery as the Americans. The Americans were vicious, boy, with their lynching and their castration, and even today they are hanging on to some vestige of that. That's atrocious, man. That I so maybe that was kind of like what he was trying to make a differentiation about, no?
Yeah, you could look at the differentiation, but the American history. People talk about the Revolutionary War in America. I subscribe to the belief that there was an anti-revolution that went on, that the slaves were rebelling. The slaves had picked up some support because people like the French was telling American slaves in Louisiana, y'all make it over here, you're free.
Yeah,
They were putting guns into the slaves' hands. The same thing was happening to Cuba. So the whites who were brought to America as slaves, mainly Irish, that was brought to America as slaves, they joined the white masters because
they were white
they
too.
were white
Yeah,
and they did not join in the slave rebellion.
yeah.
So
Interesting.
when you look on it, it's an I mean the fight that they put up, the slaves put up. It was bitter, and yes, the people even today people talk about critical race theory, which is really about telling the truth about American history. And you have some white people that they go crazy. They don't even want the truth to be taught. They want to
They
they
can't
can't
handle the
handle
truth.
it. They
Yes,
can't handle the truth.
listen,
But yes,
any one of the topics we touch on now, man, could I'll take the whole show. But we're gonna period of time, and we're taking a break about 3 o'clock, and then we
mhm,
run. Of course, the show runs an hour now until 3:30.
yeah.
My time. I don't know what
Mhm.
your time is. You left Jamaica and you went where?
I came back to Belize.
Uh,
I
so
came back to Belize. I wanted to attend college and I thought about going to Canada. That wasn't working out. I came back to Belize and my first job with Belize actually was at the almoner's office at the hospital. And the almoner was the office that provided some assistance to people who needed assistance. My,
that's the,
my boss was a guy named Brian Pitts. He
uh,
was a great guy to work with, and I didn't know there was such an entity called an almoner's office.
I didn't need it until now. You to say it.
Yeah.
Almanar as in arms, ALM.
Yeah,
So
ALMONERS.
it's like a
Almoner.
social program
Yeah, that
for
was like a social program, and I think I was making $35 a month or some
you
craziness.
want to make big money, man.
I won the lunch man the whole
Yeah,
money at
yeah.
the end of the week. My pay gone on lunch.
Yeah,
But
you know when?
anyway,
Go ahead.
I got an opportunity to go and talk to Lee Anderson at Royal Bank of Canada, and I was hired by the Royal Bank of Canada.
Right, but so you went into banking, but did you ever think about pursuing a career in banking, or did you know at
Well,
that time that that was just a passing thing?
well, for me, I look at every opportunity and really dig deep into it. There's two persons I work with. Well, there was a really guy named Pepe Rosado. He lives in Corozal right now, and Pepe was one of the brilliant persons there. Albert Moody was already at the bank. So, and while I got hired, Robert Pandy was hired by the bank, and Pepe and Pandy and I became three very close friends. And I think with their help, trying to understand even the bookkeeping, you know, you had something called the London blotter. What the hell is the London blotter? But all the tellers' totals go to the London blotter. And Pandy used to make fun of it. He said, it just suck up all the profits of Belize and transfer it to London.
No.
And basically,
That's what it was. No?
in
Yeah.
short term, that is what's happening. How the
Yeah.
money was transferred is kind of invisible, like insurance. You don't see these things going out, but they go.
I know
It's just book entries.
a couple of people from the banking industry wound up in Cayman. Did that happen during your time? And was there
That is
any?
after my time, and that's when Cayman became a big part of the offshore banking.
Yeah, but I know a couple of Belizeans are there right now, big in the
Yeah,
banking business.
quite a few. The
Yeah,
Balderamoses stand out in my mind right now. Yeah,
yeah,
but
yeah. Pulse.
yep. But
Mm.
one of the things that I learned at the bank is that the bank business was really representing exporters from the United States and from Canada and from England, because the money makeup for the bank was from foreign exchange.
So no, this least small $2 and $3 where you would put in
Oh,
a account, not really.
was
Nobody
a
send
waste
nothing.
of time. I got
Yeah,
a lot of criticism, but also got a lot of kudos from Belizeans, because people get a little small $20 check from the States and they come to the bank to try to get it cash, and the bank put them through all kind of hoops of, do you have an account? Do you know anybody? And man, I know so many people. When people come, I sign as I know them,
but
because those are not the people that going to thief you.
but there it
I mean,
is. There it
you
is
know,
now, man.
pardon me?
I said that's it because the ones that really thief, that the one that get away. The ones
I,
that come
I,
with.
I remember getting to this discussion with the manager at the bank. I said, you know, it's the Peace Corps, them that are in Belize, that are writing US checks and we're cashing it for them and they don't have the money in their account. You
Yeah,
know, that's
yeah.
a bigger problem than these $20 checks and these $10 checks. You
I
know,
guess that
cash the checks, man.
my pa had one saying where he says, son, if you're going to hell, going on a golden chariot, not going on a mule and cat. So I guess that basically it. If you thief big, you get away. When you're going to least small chains, and then they put pressure upon you, no?
Yeah, man, that's some silly stuff with the bank. I mean,
Eh,
the bank get all the bill of ladings for people that this is. I didn't understand the commission agency setup.
yeah.
The bank, you have people representing the exporters from their foreign country, whether it's be Castillo or Gomez or any of these people. So what happened is the bank gets all the papers to collect the money from whoever ordered these things. And we have a messenger that go around and try to collect. It might be 60 days, 30 days, 90 days. If somebody can't pay for it, we are instructed to release it to the commission agent. And then the commission agent could sell the stuff or do with it so that the exporter makes his money.
So basically,
But
a crowfoot kind of business.
yeah, but what as a result of that, I found that the you don't have a credit system. For example, if a man decided in Belize, you know what, I'm not gonna deal with the commission agents in Belize. I will directly from the manufacturer. That manufacturer will then ask the man for his bank, and they will then contact the bank to find out how this man is as is a credit risk. the bank will then check the commission agent to see, okay, how was Mr. Reed as as
Client or whatever.
your
Yeah.
client? What this was he like? And the commission agent just have to say, you know what, this little he think he gonna go around me and order
Yeah.
direct, so I
Yeah.
gonna give you a bad credit. And then
Yeah.
you realize you can't do anything. The Chinese came in and they do their stuff in bulk, as a group. The same thing with the Mennonites. They would
The
do their
Hindus.
stuff, and the Mennonites was even different because they put all their money in the hands of whoever the spiritual leader is.
Right.
So
Right.
there's
Right.
there's
Right.
so there's a lessons in cooperative economics going on right there, but the Belizeans are sidelined or don't even know. Talk about critical thinking. They don't even know that that is going on. But I learned that from the bank. So,
The sad thing is now, man, that they don't care to know. They don't know.
but
They don't seem to care to know. And and again, a topic that we could talk about all day,
mhm,
because Belize, of course, is noted as a melting pot of cultures, no?
yeah,
But it seems like the other cultures come to Belize and do well. Put in place a structure, and Belizeans are still running around with chickens, like chickens with their head cut off.
mhm,
We see the Mennonites now, and I'll move on to the topic of the marijuana and
mhm,
the move to legalize it now, because
yeah,
I really believe that Belizeans again will be left out of this.
mhm,
The people that have the big machinery and the Mennonites, of course, that they could cut down the forest and whatnot, and they've been doing it. They've been doing a
mhm,
lot of land clearing, and they're well prepared to
mhm,
capitalize on this trade.
yeah.
I hope government has in place some kind of program to make sure that Belizeans are involved in this. What's your view on the whole move to legalize marijuana?
Well, I mean, I know if they call it medical marijuana, that will exclude most of the small weed sellers in Belize because they're going to come with some requirements to have medical marijuana that we won't have the capital to get into. I know other countries. It's. I have friends in Saint Vincent, and they're asking for reparations. They're saying, if you lock me up for 3 years because you caught me with marijuana, will I get reparations? No, as you're busily trying to give away
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
business to investors, foreign
You,
investors.
you know that the
You
one aspect of it that I don't think they're even looking at closely enough,
know,
because what happened to the many people who were ruined? You know how
exactly.
many people couldn't even get a visa to travel because they had a record for one stick of
Stick of
marijuana?
marijuana, yeah.
You know,
It's the whole marijuana thing is an interesting one for me. I mean, I have gotten so much criticism, so much hell over the years because I stand up for marijuana.
uh,
I found that there are people who used to smoke weed in my house that pretended they never know nothing about it. Have a
yeah,
sense of
yeah, yeah,
betrayal from
yeah.
people who, but
You know better.
it's a
Yeah,
health issue for me.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's important to me to be authentic. So
yeah.
that the use of marijuana is not an issue. I know the church or some church members in Belize is making that an issue. If anything, it's a health issue. I mean, I don't smoke cigarette. I don't smoke marijuana. You know, for me right now, it's a health issue. But I will not condemn anybody. I will
Yeah,
not condemn anybody that wants to get into the business. But we have to we have to protect the small man in Belize who might have grown a little bit of weed and but has his clientele. Who
right,
has his clientele,
right,
you know?
right. In fact, if they don't, hell will break loose, because
Yeah,
these are you're gonna have problems in the streets, and if
yep,
you say you're a man where they control this area for a long time in the legal sense, and
yeah,
now it's legalized, and they give a man from outside of this district and license because selling a your area. That now and cut, boy.
Yeah.
You
And
know what happened?
unfortunately, a lot of people who grow and sell grow on government land.
Boy,
So
that
they
yeah,
don't have their own land to
correct,
say this
correct.
is, so
Well,
they have to try go about getting that land,
yeah,
and
they could.
government have to respect that because government might not want to help them to get the land
Yeah, the government might want to keep it for themselves or
for
share it
themselves.
among.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
that
know,
one,
or the investor that will come in and pay a bribe to get
yeah.
the land.
Now, man, that about 3 o'clock. Make we take on break. Make see why don't leave advertising,
Sure.
and we'll come back with some more issues. All right.
Sure.
See you in a minute.
Yeah.
If CY is not asleep, let's go. We know when.
No, I'm here. 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 I'm checking
Do
it.
it.
I'm
Do your
checking
thing.
it.
Do your
I'm
thing.
checking it. One love. One love. Very informative. Very interested. You know what I mean?
All
I just
right.
want to say, it's a pleasure. Thank you very much, Mr. Nas, to come on. Mr. G, will do what he have to do in a little while. But in the meantime, I want y'all to know about a Mother's Day race that's coming up for Mother's Day out of. Oh, Jermaine, how you doing? Out of Boom and Ben Mopani will have intro during the week as we go along. I want you to know what's coming up next. Mr. Selector Trilogy out of Boom will be here with a couple of artists, along with the technician Smokey Dunn. You don't know out of Florida. You're gonna be having fun. Julia will return. You'll be hearing nothing but some nice, beautiful Belizean music, original music. You know.
All right.
But
All
as
right.
far you good, you good.
We're good. We're good.
All right, good. That's what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. So we continue the conversation, Norman, because
Yes.
in particular with the marijuana situation, the reparation aspect of it, that one interesting thing. How they went, what they went do if they went expunge the records of these people who got record for marijuana. I remember one time, famous cyclist Rudy McGill, Mekona Belize, and police stop and find a giant. Boy, the
Yeah.
problem when they run that man through, and I'm like, come on, man, this even just for one giant of weed, take it with. In fact, I came from America where they would take your weed, tear it up, throw it away, and send about your business if that's something like one small amount like that.
Yeah.
I remember one time police pull up on a group of guys up and about 6 men to smoke weed, and then that's where the weed. The police carry all 6 men, and I said, but we at the man and give you respect. Then show
Yeah.
the man roach, and the man couldn't even find the roach, but yet
Yep.
you are carry the man there and lock them up, and now you're to turn around and make it legal. There's something about it now, man. That is
Yeah,
not.
there's so much about this, and I know one of the things in Jamaica was where I heard weed being called Kali. People talk about Kali. No, Kali is a black goddess.
Interesting.
You know, Shiva is the male, Kali is the female in
Okay.
the
So
Hindu religion. So smoking Kali was more spiritual.
well, listen,
It's very spiritual, and
they are
it's part of how do you have the female part of you inside of you? What makes you more sensitive? And there's a whole I
boy, that
had
a lot.
a
That
whole
a lot.
a
Uh,
whole lot in terms of spirituality about Kali, because when the East Indians came over to the Caribbean as
indentured servant.
indentured servants. They
Yeah.
brought it with them. They brought the seeds. They used to smoke hemp. But
Yeah.
that was my introduction to Kali.
Well,
Which is a totally different thing about escapism. But I could tell you, right in Belize, sitting down and talk with young men, smoke and people talk their issues. I used to say, boy, I'm glad for weed for people to be self-medicate.
Well,
because some of the issues people have are bigger than I could even think of handling.
funny thing now, man, because well, there was a rumor that the burning bush that Moses saw was actually weed where him in the smoke, no, and it come down with Ten
Yeah.
Commandments.
Uh-huh.
Some say much more than that. But I remember speaking to a correction officer in LA, and I was saying to him, I say, well, it's funny because you could get more, you get weed almost easier in a jail than you could get outside. I said, what want to do? Are you guys really trying to lock this down? And he said to me, honestly, no. He said, we
No.
can't because these people need for that stress. He said,
Yes.
you don't understand the amount of stress people under in a that kind of environment.
Mhm.
And they have to have one release. So we have to allow some of that to get in so that
Yeah.
they could get one stress relief, no? One safety valve, if you will. So
Yeah.
so that's interesting. Some people suggest that one gateway to hard drugs. You believe in that?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I know guys that smoke weed their whole life and I've never stepped foot on anything else.
Yep. And people, I have very low tolerance to alcohol. I get feel sick with alcohol before I get drunk.
You're not glad
You
about that?
know, I glad about that.
Yes, sir.
So,
Yeah.
so for me, the smoking was preferable.
Yeah.
You know.
Actually, and I want to stay upon you, but on my side, I used to smoke a lot when I was in the States. A lot. I mean, all day. Like some people that I see. Then I was offered a job with the police department. And I said to myself, I really can't smoke weed for a department to lock up people.
Hmm.
And it might be hypocritical because I had to work with this department to lock up people for smoke weed and I didn't smoke weed. Though I know magistrates that smoke weed. So the hypocrisy is blatant
Oh
and
yes.
outright
Oh yes.
rampant.
Oh
Um,
yes.
but I could tell you, and what struck me was a comment by this Ann Landers that did a columnist for New York Post
Hmm.
when
Hmm.
she responded to a person and said, "You know what? I found that marijuana makes dreamers of potential achievers,"
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
found that relevant. And I stopped smoking weed for about 20 years. For all the
Hmm.
time I worked with the police, I didn't, and my conscience is clear on that. And I just to say
Hmm.
that, and I feel good about that because it shows that you can stop that the weed. They're not something like heroin. Heroin
Hmm.
and harder drugs, you get one withdrawal.
Hmm.
You're physically hurt. If you don't smoke weed, you feel maybe confused for a little while or depressed, but you could get over it without any serious withdrawals.
Yeah.
So I was over it, but then when I started back, I realized that that smoke weed all day don't make no sense
Yeah.
because you have to deal with reality at some point, and you're not in reality when you're high. So,
Yeah.
and I find now that I compartmentalize. I
Hmm.
got one least section at a time where I take and smoke, but then I by myself and I deal with
Hmm.
me at that almost a meditation kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? I find it
Hmm.
help me to get in on some exercise and calisthenics and whatnot. So
Hmm.
it drives me with that and I think that what is important before we move on with this marijuana thing is some education
Hmm.
about the do's and the don'ts and what can happen to you, the harm that can be done. Because make no mistake, that one that's something outside of the ordinary, the normal, if you will,
Yeah. Yeah.
or your what you were born with. There's something you introduce to yourself into your system. So
Hmm.
I'm hoping that we do have some education on it.
Yeah. For me, I stopped smoke because what I have found that here in New York, some of what I got was so strong
Hi,
that
boy.
I am convinced that is not marijuana. That is
I think they soup it up.
some additives,
Yeah, yeah.
and that is what you really need to pay attention to, because these are things you enter you're bringing into your body.
Well,
So I
I,
stopped.
I'll give you an experience I had on the streets of LA when this guy they shoot heroin. No, I never did
Hmm.
shoot heroin because I'm afraid of needles. I'll tell you the truth. But this
Hmm.
guy shoot the heroin and it dropped drop down dead. And
Wow.
the next boy walk up and say, boy, the way get that the thing where they look for. And I said, boy, the people are crazy, but a serious thing that the personal experience that they tell about
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
so
yeah,
but
yeah.
so how you wind up the United States?
I came up here. I was here illegally.
Uh-huh.
I entered Brooklyn College. I became very active in the Caribbean community. I was a sociology major.
This was what year?
This was late, late, late. This is like 67, 68.
Okay, yeah. This was
Um,
before you went back and got involved with UBAD.
yeah, what
Okay.
happened was there was something called community control that was being tested in Ocean Hill, Brownsville, and
Uh-huh.
the teachers was opposed to it, to Federation of Teachers.
Uh-huh.
And as a student, I was one of the people who volunteered to be a tutor. Um, I mean, all of these things are training and insights that you gain. Once you're not afraid, no?
But was that your introduction to revolution, if you will? You would want maybe call it that, or were you even before that
I think even before
inclined?
that,
You were
because
inclined.
when I left Belize, I was so upset about what was first introduced as the 13 proposals.
Okay.
I was upset about that, and then that came back as the 16 proposals.
Were you a
So,
part of the demonstrations leading
so
up to
oh
that?
yeah, 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 we bomb out Rage of Belize and all of that in the 60s.
Okay.
I was I I was hurt, angry that Mr. Goldston wasn't given an opportunity to get on the radio to talk. He said he was the one that spilled the bean. Um, Mr. Price said that he didn't understand it, and Mr. Goldston was a troubled and confused mind. That was how he put it. But so
But
I was upset.
didn't Mr. Golson jump the gun on it though? Was it
Oh
not?
yeah, he exposed it before he wasn't supposed to share the information. He
Yeah,
broke the rules.
but yeah,
He
because
broke
it was not anything cement yet.
as yet.
Yeah, yeah,
But
but it was alarming the way it was proposed, of
it,
course.
for me, it was alarming. So
Yeah.
I was involved in that. Um, Coming to New York, I ran into people I knew from Jamaica, and
Okay.
ran into other students, and we became part of what was called Caribbean People's Alliance, and we did things. We got fed what was happening in Guyana, what was happening in Trinidad, what was happening all over the Caribbean, and made a good relationship with those people. A lot of them we raised money for the different fledgling groups, even union and Belize. I was raising money for UBAD. UBAD had started what in '69,
Yeah, but around that
but
time, yeah.
yeah. So before that, um, there's a man named Mr. Cecil Mackey who had a boat that carried people to Key. Mr. Mackey had a house on Park Place in Brooklyn,
Uh-huh.
and we used to rent his basement to have fundraisers for UBAD. So that was my early association with UBAD, and it was mainly because I saw that there was a lot of myth about America, and people had to, America don't have streets made out of gold.
Oh
There
boy.
was there were some serious issues about white supremacy when it came to America. So
Was there was
I
there any?
found that I found that as in terms of UBAD message was important, but more importantly to me was the message about doing for yourself and to do farming, which came
Yeah.
out of the Nation of Islam, and Ishmael Omar Shabazz and Justice were the two that put forward that idea, and
The
that made sense to me.
the part about just only input here about the streets of gold, because I remember I used to get up early for go to work. I was living in Queens and worked in Manhattan, and the streets of America, they look. I think they mix glass with the asphalt, and when you dey drive, it dey glitter. And I must remember saying to myself, "This I must when to talk about with the streets of gold, right?" But now, was there at that time any solidarity with Africa and the
Oh yeah,
African movement?
oh yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah,
oh yeah. The
yeah,
anti-apartheid, the principles were the anti-apartheid movement was active in that, the anti-war movement, the civil rights movement. Those were three. And appreciative of an issue that grew out of the civil rights movement was whether this was really human rights, and
right.
taking the path that is with civil rights was wrong, because a lot of people don't realize that it was taken up as a human rights issue
Interesting. Yeah,
before
yeah, yeah.
before
Well, 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 the fact that white people are involved and people
mhm,
of other cultures, no, were also
mhm,
involved in the fight,
mhm,
and people don't pay that much attention. But yes, it is a human rights issue because
mhm.
the humans against humans.
Yep.
And we talk about black and black crime or human against human. When you talk
Mhm.
about slavery, that's something atrocious, man, and something
Yeah.
worth condemning. No,
Mhm.
when did you decide to move back to Belize and become involved in the movement there?
Like I tell you, we were doing fundraising. The person who had been with the early beginnings of UBAD was a guy named Robert Livingston, who had
Okay,
come to New York, and who and I struck up a uh, very strong friendship. As a matter of fact, I introduced him to some of what I was doing.
okay,
And so we talked about the challenges with UBAD, the constant police issues, and then I we got a call. We got a call that Evan Stamp and Justice, and I don't remember the other two people, were arrested for a burglary, and that was an all-time low in that, you know, that you can't call banditry revolution. And
or vice versa. Yeah.
with the encouragement of Rasta and the concern of my wife and children at that point, you're going to get up and just drive to Belize, which is exactly what I did. I got up and drove to Belize and was able to sit down. I talked to Evan a couple of times. I'd known him before before UBAD. I knew him when he was at school here in the States, and knew that he wanted to really do something with writing. He's a skilled author.
That he is.
So I went back, and without any exaggeration, UBAD didn't have any money. The paper was in trouble. Um, there was a guy named Norman Bulwa, who had a
Mhm.
printing press, who was doing some pro bono work for us. Um, I went to a family friend named Miss Nessie Burns, who at that point they had owned what's the printing press?
No beacon.
No, 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 no. They sold supplies, so on. It's still in existence now. I think I still own it now.
No
Um,
Angelus Press.
Angela's Press. Miss
Okay.
Nessie Burns at Angela's Press. I was born on Eve Street and was friends with all these people, family friends with Nessie Burns. Actually, I met Alan when I was in Belize last year this time.
Mm.
But Nessie Burns gave me credit. You know, some people wouldn't believe that, but I went to people like that who I knew,
Yeah.
who gave me ink so we could continue to bring out the paper.
That when you had a 2 page, I
It
remember
was
one page. Yeah.
it had gone, yeah, it had gone beyond the get Stetner machine to now we
Yeah.
had a printing
Printing.
press,
Yeah.
and we had gone beyond that. I ran the paper while Shabazz had an idea that if they got to the States, the Nation of Islam would support. I didn't think that would happen. I think that, I mean, what I knew of the nation while I was in New York, that would be a long shot. But anyway, Shabazz and Evan Hyde came to New York and met with the nation. They didn't get the help. Freedom Committee did a little fundraiser or something for them.
Mhm.
Evan has a fear of flying, so they did everything by road. But during that period, I worked as the editor of the paper and brought out the paper during that period.
But Norman, you at some point you bowed out or were pushed out. Which one?
Uh, what happened was is we had there was a lot of there was a lot of talk, a lot of noise about a decision that UBAD would support PUP in the elections, the 74 elections. We talked about it. The person, my direct source of information, I could divulge it now, was Ray Lightburn, chef.
Yeah, who
Chef
was
would
a
tell
big
me about,
PUP.
yeah, Chef would
Mhm.
tell me about the conversations taking place.
Mhm.
We used to celebrate African Liberation Day every year, and we had our celebration, and we had our parade, and we had our Miss Afro. And when we passed by the Guatemalan consulate, somebody threw a bottle, and things went. I mean, it became a riot, and some people say riots are, the voice of the voiceless.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it really got out of hand. Um,
People
I
got
was
arrested.
arre-
Oh,
I was
you?
ar- I was arrested. The
Okay.
printer, the press was arrested. Shabazz was arrested. Number of people from UBAD was arrested. The person who police was looking for was myself and Michael Hyde and Big Brother Burns. And I got that message, and we went to my sister, who was then the wife of Dean Lindo.
Hmm.
We went there, had breakfast, and informed the police that they could come and get us beer. So the police was very nice. They waited for us to eat and took
Okay.
us in and took us to court. And police let go Michael Hyde
Yes.
and kept Big Brother and I. And that's when folks are saying, "Boy, you don't see what happened to you. You,
Sacrificial lamb.
yeah, you go get sacrificed."
Yeah, yeah.
And they held me for a week. Shabazz and I talked, and I made it known. Listen, I didn't come back to Belize to start to bow down to no politician. My feeling is, and I know this, and I believe this strongly. For you to create change, you have to organize people and you have to organize money. And if we're going to one of the political parties, any one of them, in the hope that we will get some money to do the things we want to do, we're gonna fail. We're gonna
But
fail. We
what
can't
about
do that.
what about the school of thought that suggests that you have to get inside of one of them to be to affect any change? You don't agree with that?
I do not agree with that at all. Because nobody, and I have some very good friends who have gotten inside of both PUP and UDP, and I saw what happened to them. I
Yeah.
mean, very, very, very good friends. People I respect highly, still maintain a friendship with them because that's their decision. But from community organizing that I've done, mainly here in the States, even supporting of the anti-apartheid and Grenada and all the work, you have to be able to organize people and organize money. And the way you do that will tell you where you're going to end up,
And
and that
independently, you're independent of any politician or
independent
political
of
party.
any politician. You
Mhm.
can't do it like that. You can't do it like that.
Now, man, there's a theory, if I might call it that, about a PUDP.
Mhm.
Having been in the U.S. and looking at this thing from afar, um, do you see the two parties sometimes seeming to be colluding with one another? Are there distinct um, idealisms between the two, or is there?
I think they excuse each other corruption and mainly
Yeah,
the corruption, they will
yeah.
excuse it
And
for
ignore it.
survival.
And ignore it.
Ignore it, ignore
Yeah,
it. And if I
yeah.
come in, I may come up with all kind of charges against you during the campaign. But
Correct.
I win and you lose,
And
and
that's it.
I'm not gonna take you to court
But,
because
but,
you have
but
as many charges against me.
we've seen that, Norman, because I've
Yeah.
seen Dean Barrow in particular stand up and say, see this, we got this evidence, we got this evidence. And then after election, what? Same thing with the PUP come in. Oh, we got this, we got this, Spaniel and whatnot. And nothing ever goes anywhere. And nobody gets arrested. Well, if we had a couple of arrests, but no jail time at all.
No jail time for
Do you
nobody.
think
Nobody.
you'll ever see a time when politicians go to jail in Belize?
If we have different leadership, if there's new leadership, and I've watched the third parties, and it's raising the money is difficult. Maybe organizing the people is might not seem as difficult, but raising the money is difficult. So even one of the third parties, I was surprised to see some elements of what I call the insane religious right starting to double in the local politics.
Which
So
might be more dangerous than what we have.
bit more dangerous than anything
Yeah,
that could come.
we might deal with the devil we know as opposed to the one we don't know here, no?
Yeah,
Yeah,
they somehow miss the message about love.
I think
Love
so.
is the real issue in their Christian faith.
Yeah.
They miss
Where do
that.
you stand religious wise? What's your faith?
Me, I describe myself as a Christian.
Are you a believer in Jesus Christ?
I believe in a Jesus who took a message of love and who says, "Do as I do." Who give that big parable about this good Samaritan and who is your neighbor? Because he said,
But do you believe that Jesus is God?
well, I have some problems with the three persons, the Trinity. I have problems with that. I recognize that there's some mystery. I mean, we just gone through Easter. I use the 40 days of reflection, and the resurrection is that the Christ, the spirit that's in you, it arise because sometimes it go dead and you slack off from what you know you should be doing. You
Funny,
know.
I remember this guy. They were interviewing Jordan Peterson, a guy that I enjoy his video cast and whatnot, and his book, by the way, I would recommend 12 Rules for Living.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but he was saying that yes, I believe Jesus is God in the same way as all of us are a manifestation of God on earth, and it struck a chord. And I think,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I hear you saying something to that effect. That
Yeah, when Jesus left the earth, Jesus said, "I promise that you're going, the Holy Spirit, you're going to live with you." And I think that that is true. I think that you have, I don't know, some people call it conscience. You have, when you're messing up,
of course, there's a skill within you.
part of maturity is being able to find your authentic self, that you are proud of, and that no hypocrisy in you.
Lean
As-
upon that a priori
yeah,
knowledge within
yeah,
you. Yeah,
yeah.
man. I have a problem with putting the concept of God, which is infinity, in any particular object, even if that the body of a man.
Hmm.
I think there's much wider than that. But that one another topic we'll have to discuss at another time.
Yeah.
As interesting as the rest of them.
Hmm.
Um, I I see you though, Norman, as a dove, one of those carrier pigeons that you tie a note upon the leg, and you had a note to carry, but before you reached the destination, you were intercepted by a hawk who kind of locked you away or pushed you away and took the message, and but not being able to deliver the message got lost along the way, and we still wait for that messenger. Do
Mhm.
you Would you say that your mission was complete, or do you think that there was more that could have been done or should have been done?
Well, in terms of Belize, there's probably more that could be done. I think that I was fortunate to be able to do things in other places. You
You worked
know,
in Africa, I recall.
yeah, I arrived I arrived in Nairobi, Kenya in August of '82 in the midst of an attempted coup.
Well,
And I I was taken back by the number of men with arms in the airport, and they were foreigners, clearly not Africans. And I was told they were Israelis.
there were white people.
Now, yeah, they were
Uh,
Israelis. And
yeah,
over the years, I have read about that attempted coup and why it failed, and there's never a mention about Israelis.
yeah,
But what happened was Moi, the president of Kenya, who comes from a minority tribe. So there was when the Kikuyu leader died, and Moi, as vice president of,
yeah. You didn't have the
became
support.
leader, you had people from the bigger tribes who were saying, "Oh no, he can't be president."
Yeah, yeah.
So the people from the elite forces, the Air Force and the Navy, they decided they're gonna get rid of him and
And
put their
imported the
people.
people. But so
And
it wasn't successful though.
yeah, it wasn't successful because Moi called on the Israelis.
I
He
see.
had given the Israelis air cover when the Israelis wanted to go rescue some Israelis who were kidnapped and were in a plane in Entebbe in Uganda.
Interesting.
So they were able to come through Kenya and get to Entebbe and release the people who were captured. So
Why?
that is, but just having seen how that happened and what information is withheld and how that got played out is, has always reminded me to look deeper into things.
Do you
Look
think
deeper into things.
that's one of the big reasons why it is now said that 80% of people do not trust the media because you don't get the full story?
I
Uh,
I could see how people come to that, but I think that you I don't know how many people would have been in Kenya. I certainly know there are people in Kenya who know the story. I'm not
yeah.
doing,
But
I was
you stayed how long?
each time I was the director of finance for the New York office, for the US office. So any
Oh,
money raised in the US goes through that office to Kenya. There's a huge operation in Kenya, about 600 staff in East
okay.
Africa. Mainly it was doing reconstructive surgery, then start to do preventive care. So I would have to go over and I monitor all the projects that are financed through monies come from the US.
So
So
that money is donated by what? By their diaspora abroad?
most of it is government money. Most of
So
it. I mean, one contract, the first contract I worked on was 25 million for projects in Southern Sudan. Other
we have,
contracts was after Idi Amin. Yeah, we had big contracts to redo hospitals and clinics in Uganda. Then
uh,
we had contracts in Tanzania, and of
we,
course, it has operations all the way down to Southern Africa.
yeah. Speaking of that, we have to see, we go on a few seconds more because we still have not touched on our diaspora issue. And there are a couple of other things,
So
but
so
this
so
I'm
we're
saying, we, I want to enough for talk to you now,
yeah,
man.
but let me just add something about the work in Africa.
All right,
What
please.
what I discovered about foreign assistance is that it has very little to do with providing aid. It's about market penetration. Any money came in or coming out of the US, for example, although the organization I work for, AMREF, had 50% discount from British Air and from another airlines called Sabrina, I had to take an American flagship.
Interesting.
When you buying pharmaceuticals, it has to be American pharmaceuticals. If it include vehicles, it has to be American vehicles because their argument is that's U.S. taxpayers' dollars. So you can ask for waivers. For example, in East Africa, all the vehicles are Land Rovers, so it's ridiculous not to get Land Rovers.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is taking this message to the accountants working in those areas that they really don't care if you're saving money by going British Air. They're not trying to save money. They want you to spend the money with an American source.
Yes.
So
Yeah. So
American
basically, cut
products,
back.
American pharmaceuticals come in, although you could get cheaper one from India or from Eastern Europe. So it's about market penetration. How do we introduce our products into this market?
Interesting. That kind of like reminds me of the situation when we take out loans from other countries, but they have to send consultants paid for with the same loan money, and so most of the money go there. At the end of the day, go right back to where you come from. That one sick game, boy. That one.
I was asked to look at a infrastructure loan that Belize had from the World Bank. This was PUP had negotiated the loan, lost the election, UDP came in. They had made Derek Hickman the to be the the
Minister.
manager at City Council because the loan changed the structure at the City Council and it
Okay.
made a lots of changes. It's a lot more. I could talk some more about it. But what was interesting was I didn't know how I would get paid. Nobody talked to me about paying me yet. So I
Yeah.
looking at the loan document and realized that they have $1 million for consultants and training. So I said, well, okay,
Better yours.
I could probably get paid out of that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I read the document and found out that 900,000 was already committed to 3 consultants from the World Bank.
My boy. That
So
that
the other 100,000 was to bring police Eastern Division under the city council and
interesting. They still not.
the creation of tourist police.
So they still not get to your salary yet. Boy.
Not, I see it with people saying, well, what happened to the money that's supposed to go to Haiti? The commodities might end up in Haiti, but Haiti not gonna get no money.
Well, listen, they were supposed to have built how many? 4,000 homes or something like built like about six, I think. I mean, all that money when they remember the earthquake when they had them billions of
Yeah,
dollars,
yeah.
everybody they give money, and and at the end of the day, Haiti is still poor, and
Listen,
no difference
man.
was made. That the whole bureaucracy of it, the logistics involved
Mhm.
is incredible, Norman. I don't know how you get around it. It's not an easy thing.
It's not easy at all, and the board members of AMREF were really rich people who had done really well. Um, and the truth is, when they go visit Africa for their own little private business because of their association with AMREF, they could see the president.
Yeah,
They're
and
not
and,
dealing
and
with
probably not
no.
spend no money because they get um red carpet treatment.
They get
Eh,
red carpet treatment. I'm
uh,
telling you, it's more because it's very seductive. When I go there, I have a driver meeting me at the airport and a driver taking me to work every day,
yeah.
picking me up, dropping me off, taking me where I want to go. You
Well,
know, it
you can
it's
you can
it,
you can at least be happy that you caused employment for one person at least. The driver can be a problem or tip from you. So um Yeah, man. Right now, man, we have a time. I hope we could do this again. There's so many more things we need to talk about.
Yeah.
Make I do one more thing before we go because I want to touch on it. We got to talk about the diaspora situation,
Okay.
but there was a bill signed the other day for a pardon for Nora Parham. You were old enough to be aware of
Yeah, I
Nora
remember
Parham's
Nora Parham.
situation.
Yeah.
What was your take on that? How did you feel about that?
Nora Parham claimed that she was abused, that this husband had been really abusive. Um,
But
and,
can that
and
justify murder? Listen, abuse is wrong. We all know that, and we have to
Mhm.
cry shame on abuse, and we wish that violence against women would stop.
Well,
Um,
I don't think in her case it was premeditative. I
wha- wha-
think that she saw the opportunity to get back at this man, and and she took it.
now, man, if it doused the man with gasoline, lock her in the shit house and
Lock
set
her in
on
at the shit
fire.
house, and those, it's a cruel death.
That not easy, you know. And then where you just
It's
stand
a
up
cruel
outside
death.
and hear the man they holler. You cannot care how drunk, you don't feel pain. So I
Mhm.
don't know. That was something that I think did not get enough thought, and it was probably just something to try to get some political mileage.
But
Um,
listen, you got to connect it with the abuse of women. Like right now, this issue of our ambassador
yes,
who
yes,
raped this girl and for 14 years and then she
allegedly.
stepped forward, allegedly.
Yeah.
Oh, not to judge anybody, but rape is not about sex. Rape is about exploitation and oppression.
Power.
Rape is not about sex
Yeah.
because when a man gonna rape a 6-year-old child, you know that is not about sexual pleasure.
By
That
that
is
that is-
about
that's a sickening thought.
that's about chancey, just
Yeah.
chancey. This is where
Yeah. Yeah. You they
Belizeans
affect
call
that
it.
child's whole life.
Yeah,
If that
but I've sit down. There's a story about somebody named Sally Hemans in the States the that was spare parts to Thomas Jefferson. She had 6 children for Thomas
right,
Jefferson.
right, right.
He first take her when she's 13. He took her to France when he was ambassador. She could have stayed in France. She could have not come back, but she came back. Now, what obviously this is the power balance between these two people are unequal. So it is with rape, and even when it comes to this whole issue about men providing the financial support to a family because of a child that he have a sexual relationship. This is something that need to be dig into, but it's for real. It
They want
happens.
they want wide issue now, man. And
Yeah.
I don't know though if we can tie them together so closely. The matter of the listen, abuse is wrong, rape is wrong, any kind of exploitation is wrong. No
Hmm.
one human being should exercise any kind of power and abuse another human being, regardless of what the association is, how you do it. But how do you then uh, um, reconcile um, that with taking a life um, as a result? I could understand a a kind of self defense thing. If
Hmm.
in the act you're frustrated, you're tired, you're really upset, emotionally drained, baps, you kill a person, you grab something and stab her. I can
Hmm.
understand that. You take the iron and whap her in her head, it dead. I can understand that. That are nothing. But when you get to the point of and I don't know how much gasoline you keep for putting an iron, but that's not much. But the amount of gasoline you got for catch a man on fire, it take and
Yeah.
leave it. So it must be set the gasoline there the wait for now. When the man come home, he come home drunk and decide, all right, this is it, I got you. I think there's a bit of premeditation argument that could be made there. that you certainly cannot justify and condone, because then we suggest that okay, then for the young boy out there, once you do me something, I do you back because
Mhm.
I have the right to. You see, that one slippery slope I think we climb on when we look at things like this and excuse it away as and justify it by
Mhm.
saying, "Oh, you are being abused, so it's okay." Because nowadays, quite a number of women have made that defense and gotten away with it.
Yeah.
In that, yes, I mean, they abused me. One, I know the last one, last case in Belize, this lady was set his man on fire while he was asleep and kill
Mhm.
her. And then she got away because he said the guy made the abuse her.
Well, this is why when there's abuse, there's got to be the police has to step in and deal with it. What happens in Belize? People don't deal with it.
A safety
My
net,
my
is,
si-
yeah,
my sister tells me the story of a parent that bring the daughter to her and saying this child has been raped by some man next door, and she takes the child to police station, and they give their report. While they're giving their report, some police come to pick up the guy, and they bring the guy in front of this little child, scaring the hell out of this child.
yeah. What do you think the child and say? Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's like if there's not a sensible way or a just way to deal with abuse, you're going to have the Nora Params. You're going to have people who say vengeance is mine, said the law. The problem with the killing with the youth is in drugs, you can't carry somebody to court if they owe you money,
right,
or
right.
so you try to settle it yourself.
Only one
You
way to
got,
settle, yeah.
yeah,
Why
but
I want hydra-headed beast.
but
I know an easy way
to
out.
me, it's a question of justice. And if you don't deal with it, it's going to raise its head in places that will scare you. In case of Nora Parham, she there's jokes about women will throw water upon their husband and their husband run and think they're going to get lit a fire
Anora Param.
because they're going to get a Nora Parham. So, but I see it actually as one of how we how we provide justice in our community. If you do not deal with what is unjust, and physical abuse and rape is just one set. There's
So,
whole other one on the workplace. There's a whole other set of stuff we could talk about. But it's about justice to me.
well,
That if
yeah, I hear you, and if you don't provide an avenue for people to get justice, they're going to eventually find
they're
a way
gonna
to get it.
work,
Whatever, just go in.
Fellows, how you have
Yeah,
to it over there?
yeah, yeah, man. Listen, but see, that one funny thing because nowadays now, because when you think about that now, man, how a man could even approach a woman, there's even you have to careful because take for instance one man because he touched Cormor in New York, for instance. I
Mhm.
think some of them their accusations were frivolous.
I think
Um,
so too.
a man touched me here. I mean, how does a man ask for some nowadays? I can put it like that. You and it unfair because women
you
don't
got you got to get to know her.
they don't. But see, no. One thing that they only want the ones that they want to do it
Yeah, yeah,
You see, and I
yeah.
guess they have the right for that. But how does the man know? That he put me in a tough spot, boy. You know, a tough spot.
Yeah, but as the song say, you got to get to know her. Before you go ask for sex, you better know what you're asking for and from whom.
So that's the advice.
Yeah, that's my advice. you know,
Now, man, it's a pleasure, man. Again, please, we're gonna do this again. We have to. Cause there's so many things,
anytime,
a lot of things we
anytime,
didn't
man.
cover. I really enjoyed the conversation with you. I hope
Hmm.
the folks out there enjoyed it. And
Hmm.
let us hear from you. Let us know what you think. But we're on here.
Sure.
We're here every Saturday at this time. So feel free now, man. Make we know when you got lead time, some other time down the road. And we'll
Yeah.
sit down and talk again, man. Or if any burning issues come in and you have any input you want to put on it, by all means,
Yeah.
touch base with me, no?
Well, before going, I want to publicly thank you for all you do in Belize. Charlie Burton Park is an example of how one person can get up and do something to help a whole collection of youth. So
I figure at some point you'll flip this thing wrong for me, but nevertheless, stay strong, my brother. We're talk, right?
yes,
Respect.
stay strong. Stay
All
safe.
right, now, man.
All right. Very good.
Yeah,
The
man.
root of my history. Who are the baddest man that you ever see? Baby! We'll talk to you later. Now, I'll call you later, now. Yeah. He be back on directly. If my boy tell us just straight out of Belize. Whether than any boy. I hope my boy my Malaya David and they about to David. And murmur and they leave all of this. Watch out. Listen for this tune and jump on commercial card, yo. Yeah. We come back here with my boy Gregory straight out of Pennsylvania TV. Yeah. Watch nothing. Live. In English. Listen for this tune like all this tune and jump for early on. People's champion. Watch out. Original. We function. Jaja plan. You ready? Jaja plan. Like an army of watch out. People's champion. Melody singers and they help me with this one now. Yeah. I kick it off the record. I'll get some info for the next show coming up in the next 15-20 minutes or so. Melody and him boy. This year one year is about watch out. One body have to send in the information, but yes. Wave with the money say. Carry it in the building, man like Marcos. Oh. Want to respect the Tino all the while. Transference, no what's nothing. I lock it off now, we'll come back in a few. Bless.